Before we get into today's show, let me tell you about the latest deal from Mike Lindell, MyPillow. Once again, the big box stores have canceled their orders simply because they don't agree with Mike Lindell's politics. They don't like it because he supports President Trump. Well, he's going to pass that savings on to you. No more middleman. And boy, does he have some great deals on the Giza Dream sheets and the Percal bed sheets. Listen to this. Giza Dream queen size, normally $139.98. Your wholesale price, $69.99 when you use promo code Joey. King size, only $79.99. The Percal queen size, normally $89.98. Your wholesale price, $29.98 when you use promo code Joey. Just call 1-800-893-4059 or go to MyPillow.com. Always use promo code Joey. Free shipping options available. This allotment's not going to last very long. When they're gone, they're gone. MyPillow.com, promo code Joey. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. Now, the nurse is in trouble because of her comments online about bringing harm to someone she disagrees with politically. Florida has issued an emergency suspension of the license of a nurse who wished childbirth injury on Caroline Leavitt, the White House press secretary. Attorney General Pam Bondi was in Minneapolis yesterday, posting on X, federal agents have arrested 16 Minnesota rioters for allegedly assaulting federal law enforcement, people who have been resisting and impeding our federal law enforcement rights. Looks like their chickens are coming home to roost, as my grandma used to say. Lawyers for Tyler Robinson, the 22-year-old accused of assassinating Turning Point USA founder Charlie Kirk, have asked a Utah judge to block video of the murder from being introduced as evidence at a hearing scheduled for February the 3rd. Well, of course, they don't want the video shown. Of course they don't. Wow. The United States has experienced negative net migration, according to figures released by the Census Bureau yesterday, while South Carolina, the Palmetto State, was marked as the fastest growing state with a net domestic migration increase of more than 66,000. We have the details in today's show. Also, South Carolina has racked up $150 million in cost overruns as it works to fulfill pledges it made to lure electric vehicle maker Scout Motors to the state. The state's Economic Development Agency wants taxpayers to make up the difference.
I told you we'd be back.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
It's Joey Hudson.
I wanted to name it the Joey Hudson bill, but, they don't allow you to put names on bills. But I wanted to call it the Joey Hudson bill because I know that one's been near and dear to you for a number of years.
That's how it's done. Let your voice be heard.
And the truth shall set you free.
Here's Joey Hudson.
So what's going on with nurses? First, it was the nurse at VCU giving tips on how to incapacitate ICE agents. She was fired yesterday. And now Florida has suspended, in an emergency suspension rule, the nursing license of a former labor and delivery nurse who posted a video wishing severe childbirth injury on White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt. And before anyone tries to turn this into another left-wing shouting match, let's just kind of look at the details here. Let's deal with the facts. It wasn't a private comment she made to one of her girlfriends. This wasn't a poorly worded political take. It wasn't sarcasm taken out of context. This was a licensed nurse, speaking as a nurse, explicitly wishing lifelong physical harm on a woman during childbirth. Now, according to the emergency suspension order, Florida Surgeon General Dr. Joseph Ladapo ordered the immediate suspension of Alexis Lexi Lawler's license to practice nursing in the state of Florida. The order states clearly, effective immediately, she is no longer allowed to practice nursing. Now, Florida Attorney General James Uthmeyer backed the move publicly, saying, and this is important, making statements that wish pain and suffering on anyone when these statements are directly related to one's practice is an ethical red line we should not cross. Again, this is not political rhetoric. It's professional ethics. Now, let's remind folks what started this. Lawler posted a video online while identifying herself as a labor and delivery nurse, saying she hoped Caroline Leavitt would suffer a fourth-degree tear during childbirth, adding graphic language about lifelong damage. it wasn't some type of commentary, and this is not criticism. It's a threat of harm that she made, delivered from the mouth of someone entrusted with bringing children into the world. And if that doesn't raise alarms, it should. Baptist Health Boca Raton Regional Hospital fired her almost immediately, saying that her remarks do not reflect our values or the standards we expect of healthcare professionals. You think? Again, it's not cancel culture. It's accountability. Hospitals run on trust. Patients are vulnerable, especially mothers who are in labor. If you're willing to publicly celebrate the idea of someone suffering permanent injury based on politics, because that's what this is all about. She doesn't like Donald Trump. She has a bad case of Trump derangement syndrome, and she's taking it out on Caroline Leavitt. You don't belong anywhere in a delivery room. You don't belong near a delivery room. What's especially telling here is what happened next. Instead of apologizing, taking responsibility, acknowledging that she crossed the line, Lawler doubled down. She lashed out, cursed critics, claimed she was being unfairly targeted, even after acknowledging that she used bad language as if the issue here was tone instead of intent. But this was never about the language that she used. Yes, Nana Hudson would wash her mouth out with soap. It was about whether someone who openly wishes harm on others, based on ideology, her political beliefs, can be trusted with life and death responsibility. Florida answered that question loud and clear. No. I mean, think about it. Would you want, if you're an expecting mother, would you want to be in this lady's, would you want her in your delivery room? If you're a husband, would you want your wife subjected to this woman? If you're a parent or a grandparent whose daughter is about to have a baby, would you want this nurse in the hospital locally where your daughter might interact with her? Imagine a pregnant woman going in to give birth in a Trump T-shirt or something. Now, here's the bigger picture. This case is about professional boundaries if you kind of look at how the state of Florida is approaching it. Doctors, nurses, teachers, law enforcement, these roles come with ethical obligations that don't disappear when you log on to your Facebook page or your Instagram account or any social media for that matter. You don't get to say, well, it was just a political rant, when your rant directly references your professional role, your employer. People can identify you with your employer, and you call out for harm. You wish someone ill will. That's why licensing exists. That's why she has to be a licensed nurse. That's why there are ethics involved with licensing. That's why there's a board of nursing. It's why emergency suspensions are there to be enacted in a situation like this. Let's be real clear. This decision should reassure women, not frighten them. Women should never have to wonder, does the person caring for me hate me because of my politics? Does this nurse wish me harm? Is ideology more important to them than my safety? And look, that really goes beyond just women. That should be applied to any human being. Personally, I don't want to go into the emergency room or go into a hospital and someone knows my feelings about Donald Trump or what I do for a living, a talk radio host. Attorney General Othmeyer said it exactly right. Quote, women shouldn't have to worry about a politically driven nurse who wishes pain and suffering being in the delivery room. That shouldn't be controversial at all. I mean, that's just common sense. That's just being human. Now, we're living in a moment where political rage is bleeding into professions that are supposed to be neutral, compassionate, and grounded in trust. That's dangerous. And I'm sorry that we're in that moment, because this nurse, I wish we all could get to the point that we could just dial it down. We could do whatever our professional careers have us do and not bring politics into it. Not directly like this anyway. I mean, look, I support Donald Trump. I voted for him multiple times. I support what he's doing in the White House. I have some friends who I just cringe when I see some of their social media posts. I don't wish ill will towards anybody, though. That's how they feel. That's what they believe. And that's their right as an American. But when you start wishing harm on someone, you've taken it to a whole different level. And again, it's dangerous. The response here shows something important. The system still works when leaders are willing to act and not just stand there and overlook it. Florida didn't shrug. They didn't pause or stall. They didn't hide behind committees. They took immediate action. This isn't about punishing speech. It's about protecting the public. You can believe whatever you want politically, as I just said. You can argue, you can protest, you can vote, you can march, you can do whatever you want, as long as you don't take it beyond that line. Once you cross into celebrating physical harm, or in some cases, death, I mean, again, it's just like the nurse from VCU who lost her job yesterday because she was giving tips to women on how to sabotage and incapacitate ICE agents because she disagreed with them apprehending illegal immigrants and deporting them. She was a nurse as well. You can't do that. You can't suggest to your fellow medical providers to take a syringe out and scare an ICE officer. And that's basically what she did. At a time when trust is fragile, this is exactly what accountability looks like in Florida, once again, leading the way. It's not an outrage. It's not condemning anybody. It's not selective enforcement. It's just a simple message. If you can't separate your ideology from your duty to care for others, you don't get the privilege of holding a nurse's license. It's not your fault that losing weight is getting harder and harder. You're eating better, you're moving more, but your body isn't responding the way it used to. That's not willpower, that's metabolism. And believe me, I've learned so much about the metabolism from the folks at PhD Weight Loss, and it's made a huge difference in my life. Joey Hudson here. For many people, years of dieting quietly slows the metabolic system down, so the harder you try, the less progress you see. At PhD Weight Loss, they help people identify what's actually blocking fat loss, and they fix the root cause, not just count calories. If you want to understand why your body isn't cooperating, call PhD Weight Loss now and mention Fix My Weight Loss to unlock the New Year's special. It's free, it's personalized, and it could explain everything. Call 864-644-1900 and say Fix My Weight Loss. That's 864-644-1900 and say Fix My Weight Loss to get started today. You can also find them online at myphdweightloss.com. That's myphdweightloss.com. Start the new year off right and fix your weight loss. At a town hall event, Congresswoman Ilhan Omar was confronted by a man who lunged toward her and sprayed her with a substance that was later identified as apple cider vinegar. Now, he must have been listening to the VCU nurse and some of her daily tips on getting these types of substances in syringes and using them at public meetings. I'm not sure that he understood, though, that the VCU nurse, I'm sure, was making this suggestion to apply only to what she would consider right-wingers. I don't think she had this tactic in mind for her own. The incident was caught on video. You've probably seen it. You can watch it. The man, 55-year-old Anthony James Kazmerzak, was tackled by security, later charged with third-degree assault. He has a criminal history, including prior DUI convictions. Now, first things first. I'm going to be fair here. This is not acceptable under any scenario, even if it does involve one of the squad. Physically attacking or intimidating an elected official is wrong. I don't care if it is a Democrat. I don't care if it is a left-wing activist like Ilhan Omar. There are no qualifiers, no excuses, no political carve-outs. You don't spray people. You don't lunge at people. You don't turn up at political functions like this and express your disagreement with a physical confrontation. You certainly don't spray some liquid on them that they have no idea what it is until later. That's not how civilized society functions. Even Ilhan Omar's harshest critics should be able to say that very plainly. We talk about her. We don't agree with the thing she stands for. Now, the story doesn't end there, because almost immediately the media did what it always does. They didn't just report what had happened. They framed it. They moralized it. They rushed to assign blame. Before the hazmat team even finished identifying the substance as apple cider vinegar, the talking points were already locked in. This was vitriol. It was political violence. And somehow it was Donald Trump's fault, of course. Now, remember again, the nurse that I just talked about, the nurse yesterday who encouraged her fellow medical workers to use syringes to scare off ICE agents. She suggested putting saline in them. CNN's Abby Phillips didn't hesitate. She suggested Trump was responsible for the vitriol behind the attack. Because, of course, that's the reflex now. Every bad act, every unstable individual, every confrontation, it all goes back to the Oval Office and Donald Trump. He's become the all-purpose explanation for chaos in America. Forget about what's happening in Minneapolis. Well, actually, he's blamed for that too, of course. It doesn't matter that Governor Tim Walz and Jacob Frey, the mayor of Minneapolis, have encouraged this type of behavior by suggesting to people that it's okay to, whip your phone out. Be sure you videotape this. Get in their face. Blow the whistles. Now, Trump wasn't there, of course. Never mind that this was one man acting alone. Never mind that we still don't know his political motivations yet. The conclusion came first. The facts came later, if at all. They're probably not even concerned about the facts. Now, here's another detail that matters, but isn't getting much attention. Just moments before the attack, Ilhan Omar had publicly called for the resignation or impeachment of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, citing this group to riot. This followed multiple fatal shootings involving federal immigration enforcement agents in Minneapolis, of course, two of them to be exact, and a number of ICE agents who have been harmed, one losing his finger because one of the idiots literally bit it off the other day. But let's go back. Ilhan Omar had just called for Kristi Noem to be impeached. Now, it doesn't excuse the attacker. Of course it doesn't. And again, we don't even know his political leanings. We have to understand, though, he doesn't like Ilhan Omar, so he's probably leaning more conservative. But that doesn't matter. It doesn't excuse the attacker, because it shows the temperature of the room. This wasn't calm, policy-driven discussion. It was already emotionally charged about immigration. It was, federal authority, accusations of misconduct. Minneapolis, a city that has spent years demonizing law enforcement and federal agencies. That environment didn't just come out of nowhere. It's no surprise. For years now, federal immigration officers have been portrayed as villains, particularly among the left, particularly with Ilhan Omar and her Somali community. ICE agents compared to Nazis. DHS painted as an occupying force. Enforcement of federal law described as violence. When politicians speak that way, it has consequences, even if they don't intend them to have consequences. Again, does not justify what happened. But pretending that what Ilhan Omar stands for in her rhetoric, pretending that doesn't matter, pretending that words don't shape behavior is just totally dishonest. Now, let's talk about the response. Mayor Jacob Frey released a statement condemning the attack, saying violence and intimidation have no place in Minneapolis. Oh, really, Mayor? But it's okay for people to be violent and try to intimidate federal law enforcement officers. Really? All right, fair enough. He praised police for responding quickly, also fair. But what was missing? No acknowledgement that demonizing law enforcement fuels instability. No reflection on how heated political language escalates tensions, and he is the leader of the pack. No self-examination from he and other leaders who have spent all of this time telling people the system itself is illegitimate. Just the usual line, we can disagree without putting people at risk. Well, Mr. Mayor, you have been encouraging this type of violence. It just happened to the wrong person this time. The United States is experiencing negative net migration, according to figures released by the Census Bureau yesterday. Obviously, to the celebration of the Trump administration, the Department of Homeland Security jumped on the news, saying in a statement that its mass deportation efforts had helped achieve that apparent administration goal. The agency said in a statement, in just 1 year, nearly 3 million illegal aliens have left the U.S. under Trump administration's crackdown on illegal immigration. Now, the Census Bureau reported that population growth slowed significantly over the past fiscal year, increasing by 0.5% or 1.8 million people between July 2024 and July 2025. That figure accounted for the slowest population growth since the coronavirus pandemic, when the U.S. saw a 0.2% increase in population. By contrast, in the final year of the Biden administration, the population grew 1%, the fastest since the middle of the second Bush administration back in 2006. Christine Hartley, Assistant Chief of the Census Bureau's Estimates and Projections Division, officially said the slowdown was largely due to a historic decline in net international migration. Domestic birth and death rates, by comparison, remain stable compared with 2024, leading experts to cite migration figures. Now, every state except West Virginia and Montana saw slowing population growth or an acceleration in population decline. Get this. South Carolina was marked as the fastest growing state with a net domestic migration increase of more than 66,000. The White House celebrated the goal of negative net migration in an official statement. Like DHS, Trump credited his ultimately correct projection to the end of the migrant invasion and to mass deportation operations commenced under Secretary Kristi Noem. Around that time, Noem boasted of 1.6 million illegal immigrants who left the U.S. within the first 200 days of President Trump's term. Supporters have said the mass deportation agenda has led to self-deportation, which could account for that particular number. Ms. Noem said this is massive. This means safer streets, taxpayer savings, pressure off of schools and hospital services, and better job opportunities for Americans. Thank you, Mr. President. Now, during a visit to Arizona last year, Border Czar Tom Homan said 90% of asylum seekers will end up with an order of removal because of a fraudulent claim. He said at the time, according to the Arizona Capitol Times, you can't demand due process and ignore the decision at the end of that due process, which is an order of removal. That's what the Democrats want us to do, is to ignore that order of removal. Every single person that DHS and ICE and Border Patrol are searching for right now have an order of removal. The many people they're looking for in Minneapolis already have an order of removal, but the Democrats want to just ignore that. Now, this is an interesting story. Lawyers for Tyler Robinson, the 22-year-old accused of assassinating my friend Charlie Kirk, have asked a Utah judge to block video of the murder from being introduced as evidence at a hearing that is scheduled for February the 3rd. Think about that for a minute. Now, we all miss Charlie Kirk, suffering a fatal gunshot wound to the neck at Utah Valley University back in September, when all he was doing was gathering in a public area, talking with college kids, what he did best. In a memorandum that was filed this week, Mr. Robinson's attorneys claim the video is irrelevant to their motion to have the county prosecutor's office disqualified from handling the case and would violate his right to a fair trial. Robinson's lawyers have accused the Utah County Attorney's Office of having a conflict of interest because the adult child of a deputy prosecutor was present during the assassination. Prosecutors, of course, deny any type of conflict, saying that they do not need or plan to rely on the adult child as a witness. Look, they don't need a witness. We saw what happened. It's on video. Several videos of Charlie's murder have been circulated widely online, literally minutes after the shooting. It was not immediately clear from court filings if the video prosecutors plan to introduce as evidence has been publicly seen before. We don't know yet. The defense described it as a color video taken only a few feet away from Mr. Kirk. It includes audio including unidentified voices immediately before, during, and after the shooting. This is a solid argument, said Donna Rotuno, a Chicago-based criminal defense attorney and Fox News contributor. All right, well, Ms. Rotuno, how is this a solid argument? Why is it not appropriate to show the video of exactly what happened? Yes, it's probably going to be rough for a jury to watch that and not understand that this man pulled the trigger. She said prosecutors don't need to actually play the clip to illustrate that they don't need to rely on the adult child's testimony or to argue that they don't have a conflict. Now, I get this young man deserves a fair trial. I understand that. But this is a technicality. And this is the type of thing that drives me insane with defenses like this. Everybody knows the guy pulled the trigger. Everybody knows he's responsible. He admitted it to his boyfriend. Admitted that he was in trouble. Admitted that he had done something. He ran. He hid. And I get it. The defense, their job is to try to get him a fair trial and try to take care of their client. But surely they understand he's guilty too. Sky Lazaro is a Salt Lake City-based criminal defense attorney who is not connected to the case, said she wouldn't want the video played either. However, she said it's unclear how the judge will rule. I'm not sure they're going to be successful there, she said to Fox. I don't think they will either. And I get it. No defense attorney would want a video showing your client assassinating somebody and as brutally as that, if you recall, that first video that was released, that is, I'm quite amazed how they have scrubbed it from any public online site. UVU students were there. They saw it. There's a lot of videos, hundreds of them circulated. Also in the filing, the defense claimed that news coverage of the case has been highly biased and told the court they plan to ask to have cameras kicked out once again at the start of the next hearing. They wrote that if the video of Kirk's murder is played in court, it would be subject to immediate publication nationwide and internationally. Yes, they're right on that too. This has been highly publicized. Yes, I think you could probably argue it's highly biased because I don't know of anybody who really doesn't believe that Charlie Kirk was murdered, that he was assassinated. I don't know many people who believe that Tyler Robinson wasn't responsible. I understand there's still people out there who think that Charlie wasn't even assassinated or that, what is Candace Owens' take that Israel had some play in it? I don't believe any of that. The conspiracy theorist with that. Charlie Kirk was assassinated. If you look at all the video evidence, the timeline, it's, I'm going to say 99.9% certain Tyler Robinson is the guy who pulled the trigger. Many outlets, including Fox News, One America News, Salem News Channel, have all avoided republishing the widely circulated video of the slaying because it's graphic. To date, Robinson faces 7 charges, including aggravated murder, which carries a potential death penalty. He has not entered a plea yet. We would expect that he will plead not guilty, of course. I mean, do you see, and I always ask you for your feedback. You tell me, is there a reason that this video or multiple videos should not be played in the courtroom? And is there a reason that the whole trial shouldn't be open to the media? I know that Erica Kirk, Charlie's widow, has pleaded with the court to have it open, to have cameras there. She wants cameras in the courtroom. Is there a reason that they shouldn't be? Am I missing something here? Text me, email me as always, joey@joeyhudson.com. You can leave me a quick message on the MyPillow message line. 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Is there any, I'd love to hear from a defense attorney out there. Maybe someone who has represented someone in a case like this, in a homicide. Is there a reason that this video, which is damning evidence, I understand that, should not be admitted in this proceeding? I'll wait to hear from you. Your comments are welcome on the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. That's 864-477-5639. Email's always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Speaking of the Furman Ford text line, it's never been more important to support locally run businesses owned by people who actually live here in the upstate. Let me take a minute to talk with you about our friends at Furman Ford. If you're looking for a new vehicle, maybe a great pre-owned vehicle, one you could trust, or maybe you're looking to order that special vehicle. Either way, if you want a new one, a brand new one, or a pre-owned that you can trust, the folks at Furman Ford, they're there to help you. Their name is on the sign because their name is on the line, because every single transaction is important to them. Jim Furman, Matthew Furman. They do business the right way. When you stop by, when you give them a call, or maybe when you just send them a quick email, you're always going to have access to a member of the Furman Ford family. And by the way, they also offer great service, and you're not going to have to wait weeks and weeks to get it done. And you do not have had to purchase your vehicle at Furman Ford. Doesn't even have to be a Ford. They service all makes and models. Visit my friends at Furman Ford online at furmanford.com, furmanford.com. I haven't been a big fan of the huge project that brought Scout Motors to just outside of Columbia, South Carolina. We have, according to the latest report, and I've seen this reported by multiple news outlets, the South Carolina Daily Gazette had an extensive article on it. South Carolina has racked up $150 million in cost overruns as during its work to fulfill pledges made to bring this electric vehicle, Scout Motors, to the state. The state's Economic Development Agency wants taxpayers, those of us who live in South Carolina, to make up the difference, as if we haven't already paid enough. Here's the story. South Carolina lawmakers, March of 2023, agreed to spend $1.3 billion to bring Scout to the Palmetto State. You remember all the hoopla? It's going to be the best thing since sliced bread. If the General Assembly now doesn't agree to pony up the additional cash in this year's coming budget, the State Commerce Department would have to tell contractors working on the site that it doesn't have the money to pay them. Harry Lightsey, South Carolina's Economic Development Chief, told legislators this week, and we would not have the money to pay them for several years under our regular funding. Now, funneling future money from its standing annual budget allocations also means that Commerce would have to pass on other companies that may come seeking to build in the state too, he said. More than half of the over-budget expenses, we're told, are related to an environmental package meant to offset the wetlands lost when the Volkswagen subsidy started to build. Mr. Lightsey told a House budget writing panel some of the details, some of the issues, the challenges that they're facing. Again, it gets back to this whole environmental thing. They picked a bad site, actually. I mean, let's just boil it down to what it is. They picked a bad site. Now it's costing a lot of money. According to the agreement with Scout, the State Department of Commerce and Richland County agreed to contract and pay for all of the mass grading work at no cost to the company. It's a sweetheart deal. And the cost of all associated environmental requirements were to also be the responsibility of the state and the county. The contract is 192 pages. Now, at the heart of the issue are some of the tight deadlines that Scout Motors have set for getting this work done so it could begin assembling vehicles in 2027. Those due dates were redacted in the copy of the agreement Commerce provided to media. Mr. Lightsey was quoted as saying Scout wanted to build this plan and have it in production on an extremely aggressive schedule. So there was certainly a lot of time pressure involved in all of this. Now, remember, this is the same company, Scout, who just also made the announcement that they're building their headquarters in Charlotte. So it doesn't matter how much money South Carolinians have ponied up for their new plant. It wasn't good enough for them to have their headquarters here. Back to the story. Commerce needed a waiver from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to avoid a more lengthy 2-year environmental permitting study. Lightsey said if we had had to go through a 2-year process, that would have killed the project. Maybe the project should have been killed. Again, I've never been a big fan of this. The company, through a permit filed by Commerce in Richland County on its behalf, first offered to protect 4,902 acres of wetlands near Congaree National Park and another 155 acres on the Broad River known as Shelton Island. Now, to win the Army Corps' approval, the group added 18 miles of stream restoration in Sumter National Forest to its environmental proposal, along with more improvements to land along the Congaree River. Again, all this environmental stuff. This is what Donald Trump talks about when he talks about getting regulations out of the way, making it easier to do business. Now, the group waited for approval from the Corps. Crews had to pause work for 5 months, you may recall. This created an even larger bill, a bigger delay. Equipment the state had rented just sat there. We continued to pay the rent for it. Any of you in the construction business, you know how that costs you. Lightsey said, we wanted to be ready to go to work as soon as we received the wetlands permit, and we were concerned that if we let go of that equipment, that would take additional time and effort to get that equipment back on the site. So in essence, we paid 5 months to rent equipment that was never even used. That's part of the overcost, the overrun cost. Sounds like poor planning to me. Now, once the Corps allowed the state to resume work, according to the South Carolina Daily Gazette, Commerce spent an additional $18 million to bring more crews on site and get its construction schedule back on track after the 5-month environmental delay and as unusually rainy weather hit in 2024. It's just a typical construction nightmare. And if you've ever built anything, you've been through this before. Not to this scale, though. Now, also related to the rain, the State Department of Environmental Services required Commerce to build dams on site to hold back rainwater and keep clay and silt from washing onto downstream neighbors' property. That cost another $17 million. Beyond these environmental issues, a third of the overruns were related to road improvements the state and county agreed to make on Scout's behalf. Wow. I mean, this has just become a total disaster. And again, we have bent over backwards for a company who evidently doesn't necessarily really appreciate it. They'd prefer to go to Charlotte for their headquarters. Now, Governor McMaster, in his budget proposal, only recommended giving Commerce a third of the money it's requesting. Commerce officials did not say how the agency would make up the remainder if the legislature adopts the governor's suggestion. Now, Governor McMaster has been a big supporter of this. He was at the ribbon cutting. He's been there all along. So I'm not quite sure what they're expecting here. They're asking for this additional money, but yet the governor has not recommended it in his budget. Where does it come from? Scout Motors, according to the Gazette, did not approach Commerce or the governor about making the budget ask, according to company spokesperson Jamie Lovegrove. In a statement, the company said it appreciates the state of South Carolina's continued commitment to completing the earthwork and site preparation in support of our project. Now, I don't know if they've actually started building the building yet. I mean, this is January 2026. This is a massive building. If they're still doing site work, is there any way they can build this type of building in a year? Because that's what we're talking about. They're saying that they would start rolling vehicles off of the assembly line in 2027. Scout is also complaining that their own expenses have ballooned. And it's building out a business park to house potential suppliers without requesting any additional incentives from the state, they say. Yeah, okay. The company says their total investment is $3 billion, a $1 billion increase over the initial announcement. Again, it sounds to me like poor planning. I mean, I understand in any project like this, there's going to be some overruns, some cost overruns, but these are large numbers. $1 billion overrun? How does a company do that? How does a company allow that to happen? Love to get your feedback. Text me, email me, joe@joeyhudson.com. That's it for today's edition of Just the Truth. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. If you haven't joined my mailing list yet, visit my website, joeyhudson.com. Click on the Connect with Joey button so that you can receive our emails and the most up-to-date news. Also, join me on my YouTube channel. Be sure and like, comment, and subscribe. Just search for Joey Hudson. As always, thanks for spending a few minutes of your day with me. Do me a favor and forward this episode to a few friends. Just click on the share button and send to your contacts. We need to build an army of conservatives to win our country back, and we can do that by continuing to share the truth with our friends and family. Keep those comments coming via the Furman Ford text line 864-477-JOEY. Email to joey@joeyhudson.com, and I love your messages on the MyPillow message line. Again, that's 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Be sure and take advantage of the MyPillow special, just $14.88 on the standard MyPillows when you use promo code Joey. Order online at mypillow.com or call 800-893-4053. We're back again tomorrow and hope you'll plan to join us. Until then, remember, God's got this. He's still in control.